Hey everyone, welcome to The Grind. Today we've got David joining us, so going to be a great conversation. We are going to be talking about Ruth chapter 4, the last in this series of When Life Takes a Turn. And I think it's one of those, there's not that many books named after women and not many women characters in focus, but and I think usually like as a kid we read it's like, oh yeah, Ruth, the Moabite, and just a typical story. But I guess it was cool to really go in depth into her life and just the connotations of just her being a Moabite, what Naomi went through, what Boaz is doing. And so yeah, it's been a journey. We went from a famine to being a foreigner to widowhood to favor and faithfulness. And so here we are, the conclusion, the finale,
the big finale.
Exactly. And so that's they lived in a culture where everyone did what was right in their eyes, and Ruth and Boaz did what was right in God's eyes. And so yes, we all need protection, we all need provision, but more so we need redemption. So what's something that you thought was a setback but later turned out to be a setup?
I mentioned this story a couple of times where I was trying to fly back to Hong Kong, but there was just so much trouble in the UK, so I had to take a detour to like Switzerland. And it just so happens that there was someone there that I evangelized to, and then I kind of saw that like that was a task I had to do. And so when I finished the task, I had the belief that everything was going to flow like smoothly, and it did. And then there was a second time where I was also in a dilemma where I was in the hospital because I broke my leg. And then I was kind of like also wondering why did this have to happen? And then God reminded me of this Switzerland thing, and I was like, oh, okay, so maybe there's like something I have to do to get things rolling, because I was in queue to get like a surgery. Like I've been, like they said I could wait days to get on to even make it to the wait list of a surgery. And it just so happens that a guy next to me on the next bed, what do you call it? Not a gurney. The next. Anyways, in the same ward.
Yes.
Yeah. Like he just happened to speak like really good English, and I was able to again also evangelize to him, and things just worked out. And then after, and then he was done. He left the hospital, and then I was like, I think this is it. This is like same like last time, right? And guess what? Like I made it. Like I almost like skipped the whole wait list, and I got surgery like in a matter of like days, like the next like in 2 days. So I think both of these examples were like, I was like, why do I have to take this long way? Why did this happen to me? But really, I think this is like, to me, this is how I understood God doing the whole leaving the 99 for the one. That I went through this whole unnecessary detour just to minister to the one.
That's really profound. For me, I remember coming out of university, and when I was interviewing for my first job, that really seemed like the perfect one, perfect company, and the team seemed really great. And at the time, I really prayed a lot to get that job, but in the end, it fell through. And I remember there was a time of maybe a few weeks or a few months where I was pretty annoyed at God for that. I would always pray and like, oh, why would you bring me to this industry or bring me to this place if you're not going to offer the job that I see deep down desire in my heart. But looking back, I realized he opened a new opportunity, and I joined a far smaller company, but that actually worked out for my benefit. Looking back, that company was really, really, really tough, and a lot of people quit the industry after working there. So I realized that was like almost for preservation. So that was definitely something that looks like a setback at the time, but with hindsight and perfect vision, you realize, oh, God was protecting you. Because I know for a fact if I joined that company, I would have quit the industry a long time ago.
Yeah, maybe. Well, like just hearing you guys' story kind of just reminded me of like 2 instances, which was one where, again, something to do with the flight as well. We were, I think I was on a trip with a group of people, and we missed our connecting flight because our plane was delayed in one location, and then so when we arrived to get our next flight, we missed the flight so they're like, well, so sorry, we can set up for the flight the next day, but you gotta stay in the hotel. And we're like, but all our stuff is on the plane, so it's like, well, what do we do, right? And then so I mean, thank God we had like money in ourselves, we can buy stuff. But the beautiful thing was they set up in a hotel that was, I think it was the Hilton, and it was completely new. I forget. It was basically a fancy hotel that was new. And then at first we're like, oh, should we share rooms? And then we're like, no, we get one room each. We're like, oh, okay. And then so I got the entire room for myself basically bought supplies. I set myself up in a nice bubble bath and or whatever. But then I think I stained the bathtub pink because the bubble bath was pink. I was like, I'm sorry, leave behind a mess in this. But literally the hotel was brand new, and so it's just like, so yes,
not anymore.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, even though it was a setback, like it was very inconvenient. I kind of like arrived just in time for another appointment the next day in Hong Kong. But it was just nice to have that little time just by myself in this nice big hotel room with so much space for activity. Yeah.
God was thinking of giving you a holiday extension, right? You wouldn't imagine that if you left the trip and you would end up being there.
Yeah, because it was actually back to back. Because that year was like I was on a mission trip, and then shortly after I flew for this trip, which was like sort of like a business trip, I guess. Like if you call church business, I don't know. It was like, I guess, a quote unquote business trip.
Work.
It was for work, and basically it was flying to the States, and then so basically I didn't fly back to the States for another thing back in Hong Kong, and so I just made it in the nick of time. I mean, it wasn't like oh, if I missed it was the end of the world, but it was like it would have been nice to make that thing. So, but I think it was literally I just dragged my luggage and showed up to Tanner. Yeah, the thing was at Tanner, so it worked out, and I got a nice one night stay at a nice hotel. So that was a setup, I guess, for me. And then I think it was in relation to job. I think I was jobless for eight months, and I thought it was the end of the world for me because I'm like, what am I doing in my life here? No one's. So I was like, I thought I was never get hired because no one was biting. Like I was like, is this it? Am I meant to? I think all just like thoughts like I'm supposed to change the world, but here I am stuck in my room. But I think it actually worked out, and it was a setup to I think just God like kind of like, I guess settling me down here and for me to lay down roots in Hong Kong, and so yeah, I thought it was because in my head I thought I was going back to Singapore, and so in a sense, and so for me settling down in Hong Kong was a setback for me, but turns out to be actually a setup for things that God has had in store for me. So
there's no pandan over here or kaya toast.
Nope, there isn't, but there is though in Toast Box, which is decent. Maybe some fake pandan, but pandan.
They've got the thick
fake pandan.
Okay, all right. Anyways, so yeah, I think like if we going back to the life of Ruth, there were a couple of things, and even Naomi as well. Maybe even Boaz too. Like there were just a whole bunch of different setbacks and whatnot. But it turns out to be in future setups. Thing. With Naomi, like, famine, here I am, widow, like, I'm a widow, and then you got Ruth as well, a widow, like, our husbands are gone, and we're back in this place, like, who's gonna want us, I'm a Moabite, I'm a widow, like, and then you get Boaz. So, yeah. All right, now, let's take a look at the first point, which is God who reunites. All right, he redeems, he restores what is lost, broken, or separated. So, how do you respond when God's timing feels slow, but ends up being exactly right?
I feel like I always be like, oh, the flesh is just aching, it's tired, like give me a break. But then like when you finally see like the reason of what God was doing, I think the closest thing I could describe is like it's like finding out after like a prank or a surprise that like, oh, so this is why you were acting weird. Oh, this is why there's such a coincidence that this has happened. Like it finally makes sense. And so I think like, yeah, I need to get into the habit of like, just pushing through, just having faith that like, yeah, okay, God's definitely doing something in the background. I probably don't even know what's going on, but like, just gotta power through. Yeah.
To make a good soup, you have to let it stew.
Yeah,
to make it good, for all the collagen and the protein to break down, to get all the like juices, or whether it's like preparing wine or fruit, you need to wait a while to have everything come into play. Time is like a key ingredient for a lot of things, so I think it's the same for humans apparently.
For
giving
sure.
us some time to rest and stew and recharge, receive some upgrades.
He's cooking. No,
He's cooking. Let him cook.
Let them cook. I think when you're waiting for God and it seems slow, you just really agitated. Like, when is it happening? When is it happening? And then, because there have been moments where I get really agitated. Like, why is this happening? Why is it taking so long? And then when it happens, you kind of forget about the waiting. And then you're like, oh, thank you, Lord. And then, yeah, but it also feels kind of bad too. It's just like, you get so agitated and irritated. And then when it happens, okay, cool, thanks, bye. But I think also it just feels right. And I think it just feels like, thank you, God, for your faithfulness. And I think it's regardless of whether or not God has come through, according to my standards, whatnot, I want to have this heart of gratitude and thanking God. Like, okay, I'm still waiting on you, but I'm going to rejoice in every circumstance. I'm going to pray and be faithful in prayer. And just trust you, and 5 years later still waiting, it's okay. And yeah, I think it's just responding in gratitude and hope, even though he feels slow. But yeah, so okay, let's talk a little bit about what relationships or dreams in your life that you feel has been too far gone for restoration, and what does Ruth's story say to that for you?
For us in society, we always feel like once the history books or once the records are in, you can't go back and rewrite things. Like, we are opposed to rewriting history, right? In general anyways, unless the history was like a really bad history or really inaccurate, we'll go back and revisit that. But I feel like God has this way of taking you through life where things don't really make sense, and the story is not even an interesting story. Maybe in your own eyes, you're like, this isn't a movie I want to watch. This is just boring. But near the end, it's building up, and when you look back at a lot of things that didn't have any weight or didn't seem really important or substantial at that time, you realize, oh, actually this was like a milestone, or actually this was the early point in which someone's character begins to develop, or someone's heart begins to shift. Yeah, so it's really beautiful. God has a way of changing time. As time moves forward, he's changing the things of the past and the present.
Or making it all work together.
For his good. Yeah.
I mean, I don't think he can change the things in the past. I think he can definitely work it all towards the verse in Romans works, all things to good for those who love him, right? Yeah. So I think I was speaking to someone the other day, and they were saying that does God ever get disappointed? Right. It's interesting because they said, well, disappointment is a very human emotion, and disappointment happens when expectations doesn't meet reality, right? And God isn't human, so the thing is, well, he won't experience the same way that we see things. He isn't human, he's God. So he knows, he has his expectation, he knows the reality. So they were saying that they don't think God can ever be disappointed because he already sees all, knows all, and to the end all. So disappointment isn't exactly an emotion that God would feel. And that's what they were explaining. I was like, that kind of makes sense to me. That he doesn't feel disappointed in a way that we feel disappointed. I mean, I'm thinking like the moments I feel disappointed. One of my first moments feeling super disappointed, and this is really stupid, is basically going into a movie expecting Wolverine to be excellent and coming out severely disappointed.
Which one?
The very first Wolverine. I went in hyped up.
Enough.
I went in
fair
hyped
enough.
up, and I came out like, this is the worst movie I've ever seen. And ever since then, I've always set my expectations really low for movies because I hate that feeling, right? And I don't think God has this I'm going to be so disappointed that you didn't do what I do. Yeah. He already knows the end all to what things are going to happen.
Yeah, so. I never thought about it like that, because I always thought that God would be disappointed, not in a really intense way, but kind of, I had other plans for you, but you decide to pick this path. Because I think of the story of the prodigal son. I don't think the father is disappointed necessarily in the younger son leaving, but he might feel a sense of that's lost opportunity for time spent. And of course, it's going to make the ending more dramatic and more beautiful when we do come back. But ultimately, you do have less time together. But I'm not sure.
Like, if you were to look into the example of, let's just go jump into the example, say Boaz and that unnamed relative, the one that Pastor calls Baloney Aloni, it really sounds like baloney.
That's That's baloney.
But this and that, so and so,
Baloney.
right? And so he was like, well, yeah, I don't know. Like, would Boaz have been disappointed if the guy said like, yeah, sure, I'll take Ruth, and. Yeah, maybe he's like, oh man, maybe he should have said, I mean, Ruth's a hot chick, you know. I mean, I don't know, like, I don't know, right? So like, you know, if we go to like say, like it was, yeah, we look at the second point, which is God who redeems, right? Boaz steps up to the plate, and you know, he made some costly intention, like basically redemption comes through costly intentional choices, right? And so you see that in his interaction with the person.
I don't think Boaz would have, like if someone married Ruth, I don't think Boaz would have mind. Not like from the point that he seemed kind of chill from the vibe I got. Like when I was reading the Bible, I felt like he was really submitted to God, kind of just like, okay, your way, not my way. So if you want to bring me down this route, I'll come. But he seemed always kind of laid back, right? With especially when his interactions with Ruth, you wouldn't necessarily ship them together immediately, but he was really chill the whole time.
Yeah, think about it. If you're in Boaz's shoes, like, would you have acted the same way? Like, why or why not?
I think for me, I think my moral compass would have been like pushing to do what's right. But then I think a small part of me would be like, I don't want this extra responsibility at the same time. In his shoes, that like, oh, I feel God is wanting me to take care of her. I'll be like, okay, I'll take care of her. But then I'm like, I don't want this responsibility. So if the unnamed guy says yes, I'll be like, oh, thank goodness.
Yeah. That's an interesting take.
Did Boaz have wives already?
So from the seams of it, from the looks of it, he was not married, or maybe he did have wives, but it wasn't explicitly said that he did. It seemed as though he was unmarried. Yeah, because I think if I was Boaz, what, like in that context, what would have been the right thing to do? The right thing to do was actually that other guy, the unnamed relative, to be the one to marry Ruth. And so if the right thing to do was to get him to do it as Boaz, would I be forcing him to do it? It's like, yo, you need to step up to the plate. You need to do this to redeem her. This is your responsibility. Like, do it, right? So technically, would that have been the right thing to do?
I'm not gonna lie. I feel like there was something going on. There was something going on back then, you know? Like, why are they talking about responsibility, you know? It should be kind of like a joy to do it, right?
Yeah. Well, I guess, again, Jewish culture is like, they're just going through all the motions. I mean, Boaz made a thing about it. He brought the 10 elders and set them down. It's like, all right. So on paper, the right thing to do was to get the unnamed relative to redeem Ruth. But maybe what Boaz wanted was, I mean, I would love to have her, but I guess it was more like, obedience versus desire, I suppose. Maybe, right? Maybe he really wanted to redeem Ruth himself, but he knew that the right way to do it was this way. And so he had to go down the proper path, right? So...
Don't feel that kind of energy from this story. I don't know, this generation of men in the Bible seem a lot more like, maybe not, but seem less lustful. If you ask this question to King Solomon's easy answer.
Yeah,
like,
but
of course, yes, I'll take I'll take her.
Yeah. Because I don't even need to bother about the kings, but I'll take that woman.
Yeah, I'll take her. But Boaz and the relative both seemed, not Boaz, but at least that relative seemed hesitant, right? And Boaz looked at it as a responsibility.
Yeah.
So I don't think they were like lusting after.
I mean,
or, like,
for sure, not
desiring after in a really strong physical way.
Yeah, I don't mean lusting at all. I think it's just
yeah,
more
not
like
lusting,
yeah,
not
just more
lusting,
like,
desiring maybe.
I mean, I want a wife, you know, and so she seems like a good one, but you know, got to go down the right way. But I mean, this really tells us a lot about, you know, who, like, his virtue,
Boaz was playing the long card, playing it chill. Nah, I'm fine. I'm good being single.
Or maybe he's, setting things up to kind of like manipulate, like to say, it's like, by the way, if you marry her, you want the field, yeah, but then you're going to get this instead. And then the guy's like, oh yeah, if I marry this woman, then I can't, that means and if she has children, because he can't just like not sleep with her, then my inheritance is going to be split with a whole bunch of different things. Oh no, so.
The first biblical gaslighting.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, just based on this, like, what can we learn from the character of the unnamed relative who refused to redeem Ruth?
No judgment.
So much
Not
judgment.
here to
So much
judge.
judgment in the no judgment sentence. I mean, I guess if you understand like his I guess struggles too, which is like, I guess he was counting the cost more than following the rule, I suppose.
Yeah. If he followed God's command, he definitely would have got a few chapters, a few name drops in the Bible. But
Yeah, including
he's not-
genealogy.
Yeah, I know, right? Like, he's not a main character.
Yeah.
I think that's the...
That's why he had no name as well.
yeah, I know, right?
I think besides the whole topic about him being a gaslighter,
Yeah.
I think one connection I made was that like, Boaz did it the right way.
Yeah.
Like he followed through with the long, like he said,
Yeah.
gathering the elders.
Yeah.
He did everything right, and I feel that's like a very similar like mirroring to like Jesus. You know how Jesus could have just like snapped his fingers. He goes, "Oh, you guys are all redeemed, surprise!"
Yeah.
Right, but no, Jesus went through the long, hard method of dying on the cross so that the debt is paid. Like he did it right, and I'm seeing that like with
Yeah.
Boaz and all.
I mean, Boaz is a type of Christ.
Yeah,
Very gentle.
Yeah.
Very gentle.
Yeah. So he wasn't manipulating. He was basically saying like, hey, this is the setup, and basically the unnamed relative's like, nah, I don't think so. I kind of don't want this, and it really just shows that he just doesn't really want, just doesn't want to deal with it. And so I guess like, why do you think so many people hesitate to step into responsibility even when it's right in front of them? Like clearly that was his responsibility, but he's like, nah, mate. Yeah, but why do you think people would like? Yeah.
He was just like, nah, mate. To Boaz, yeah. Actually happened.
Yeah, literally. Why do you think people just don't want to step into responsibility?
I thought about this a lot, and I feel like it's not because people don't want to take on responsibility and grow and step into maturity, whether it's like developing into the man you're supposed to be, developing into the woman you're supposed to be. It's not to do with like your heart is not in the right place. I feel like usually it's either to do with fear, the first thing, and second is you didn't do the work that God needed you to do in certain seasons of rest or in certain seasons of development. You haven't been fully refined, so you feel unworthy to step up to that. You feel like that responsibility or whatever task is at hand, you're not qualified to do that. I'm not qualified to be with a woman like this. I'm not qualified for this job role because the job description seems incredibly technical. I haven't spent, X amount of years doing this, this and that. I'm not good enough for this, But in God's kingdom, it's not about your gifts, of course. It's about the heart. If you're willing to step in, He'll give you the upgrade for you to get to where you need to be. And if you didn't do the work before, God can give you that grace,
Yeah,
That's
not
Solomon
about, it's not
wisdom.
about it's not about outward appearance, but God looks at the heart.
Yeah, I think it's a heart thing, your heart is not prepared.
Yeah.
Or you feel like you're not prepared.
Yeah,
I think that's definitely a huge symptom of why people won't step up. I think similar ones I'd say like I would add on like maybe like it's like from hurt or like flaws or fears, right? I mean like the unnamed guy, right? The reason why he stepped down was because he was scared how it'll affect his children's inheritance, right?
yeah, like the cost for him was far too great.
Yeah. So I think like, and then we just talked about like, he could have had like a cameo in the Bible.
Exactly.
Like, exactly, right?
Could have
If
been a
only-
chapter dedicated to him for all
So
we know.
yeah, so because of his selfishness, he kind of like, who knows? God could have like, he could have had his own story arc where God would have glorified him for it,
Yeah.
just as Boaz was glorified.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think he sort of put God in a box, right?
Yeah.
Just saw like, okay, I can foresee the future that if I'm with Ruth,
Yeah.
my children are not gonna get the inheritance. So end of story. You know, I've done the analysis, I ran the numbers.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Yeah.
It's not favorable.
Yeah.
And it's so limiting to God's capacity of what He can do. Like, who says God can't multiply all the fields
Yeah.
and have enough inheritance
For
for
everyone.
Everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone gets inheritance.
Yeah.
Crazy.
He
guy.
said no, so that is that. And I guess in that context, yeah, I mean, there's gonna be people who will say no to things that God has called them to, and I think that was a really good example of what Pastor Ed said about him being senior pastor, how he said like, oh, I don't believe that I was meant to be the first choice, and it was just someone other people disobeyed, and yeah, so he stepped up to the plate. And I mean, likewise for me as well. I'm just thinking about moments like this in my life where I was called to responsibility and being obedient, and especially like leading youth ministry. I think I was counting the cost in a sense where I was like, man, if I work at church, this means that's it for the rest of my life. I don't know if I want this. And also youth, like that's such an awkward time of my life. Why do I want to be involved with that? And so I'm like, also like that time, like ask Josh Pegger, he's the one that wants to do youth. I'm just like wanting to volunteer, right? So I had all these like, I don't know if I want to do this. But obviously I took it seriously. Okay, fine, pray about it. I like the unnamed relative. He was like, nah, I'm good. I was like, let me pray about it, even though my soul was like, nah, I'm good. And yeah, literally, nah, mate. But I think as I prayed about it, I felt like if I said no to this responsibility, to this, I guess it was a responsibility and an opportunity. If I said no to it, I felt like I was saying no to one of the greatest things in my life, even though I didn't know it was great.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, God, yes, I'll do it. And so I guess it led to where I'm at today. How many years later? 12, 13, 14 years later, and I'm still in church, working in church. And I think, yeah, it was a setup. So yeah, I saw that in my life. I don't know about you guys, if you saw that in your life about, saying yes to God or not, or being disobedient, maybe facing consequences. I don't know.
Well, going back to like the first question, right?
Yeah.
I feel like for me, one of those ones would have been like my DTS, my YWAM.
Yeah.
Although I wouldn't say, I think God did not really have to push me much. He kind of just almost made it happen. So I feel like I was responsible for my decision, but how do you say? I didn't have the burden of making the decision. It's kind of like I was just going with the flow with it. So I think, but yeah, I completely understand that. Like, yeah, I think people, God, I think God, no, not I think, I know God has set all of us up for greatness. But I guess it's just a matter of like,
Do we step into it?
yeah, and are we willing to like gym, are you gonna have the discipline to get up every day to go to the gym, right? I think in the same manner of like, are you gonna like have the faith to step up and just go blindly? I think.
Yeah, I'll go to the gym at the end of the day, not in the morning.
True. Yeah.
Well, yeah, so
Yeah.
we see that he's a God who restores. I mean, it ends in legacy. We all know what happened with Boaz and Ruth. They get married, and I think it's interesting to note that Ruth is a Moabite, right? And Boaz, he's actually half half Gentile because his mom was a prostitute. So I'm pretty sure he also got some flack, back in the day as well. And so we see that there was really restoration. So we really see it's from loss to legacy. And I think the example of Pastor Red sharing, the testimony they share about the couple being divorced for 17 years and then, they're getting remarried. I guess if it's God's will, right, things are meant to be. And I oftentimes think about, broken relationships in my life and wondering like, will God restore them? I don't know. I can pray, I can ask, but I don't know if and some of it feels as though it's really not, I don't know, like possible for it to be restored because, just feels like, am I asking for the wrong thing? So I guess like, yeah, Lord, I can wait. 17 years for, people to wait to get together. That's a long time. But I guess, okay, if it's God's will, I can just wait for a restoration to happen, whether it be broken relationships, whether it be like, put dreams are put aside. But if it's God's will, and I guess I'm just actively, living out in obedience to the Lord, I guess he will restore things. So so I think on the last question would be like, what can modern readers, after reading the book of Ruth, learn about dealing with loss and adversity from the story of Ruth?
In a funny way, I feel this would be the true prosperity gospel.
Yeah.
It's like the equivalent of what could have been a prosperity gospel, that like when you really align yourself to God's will and like really follow through with what God wants to do. He wants you to prosper, not the prosperity gospel that's out there right now.
Oh yeah.
Very Jeremiah vibes, yeah. Life is not going the way you want it to, and if things are not going your way, or things are not as beautiful as what it seems, don't lose hope, because I've heard people say this, that like if you're watching a movie and the main character is going through a lot of struggle, that's not the end of the film. That's like halfway through the film. That's like 30% into the film. You gotta have some adversity, you gotta have some struggle,
You gotta have some character development.
You have to
The
be
tension.
relatable, you
Yeah.
know. A story where you just win, and then the story's over is not much of a story.
Yeah.
It's not. So life is beautiful for many reasons, and if you can see the beauty in sadness, and the beauty in just the experience of life comes with so many emotions. It's not just always love, peace, and joy. Sometimes you're going to experience suffering. Sometimes you're going to experience loss. And it's not nice, but it's part of the experience of life. And you kind of, it's kind of like a buffet, right? There's so many different types of food, and you're gonna taste a little bit of everything. Even though you don't want to eat the vegetables, you gotta eat some vegetables, But then at the end, you get to have some dessert, so it's not that bad, right?
I mean, some people look forward to vegetables. That's good.
Yeah, some people like vegetables.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Anyways, we digress.
Yeah.
But I would say, if I were to look at the story of Ruth, I think I'm just drawn to the fact of her faithfulness, and Boaz's, I think his way of just being obedient, stepping up.
Yeah.
I think both parties, it cost him something. I think Ruth, it cost her comfort zone. I think Boaz, I guess it cost him potentially like reputation, with widow from Moab, and Ruth like left all that she knew. And then I think what was actually really cool is that at the end of Ruth, Naomi was talked about and included, and it's basically she was also restored too, like to saw things come full circle for technically not her daughter, right? Her daughter-in-law.
Yeah.
But then she was still family to her. And I think Naomi and her faithfulness as well was restored too. So I think God just works things out in a way that we do not expect.
Yeah.
And maybe we are blessed because other people were disobedient and did step up to the plate.
It's true.
And I think the thing is that whenever we choose to obey God, I think we can be rest assured that we will be blessed, that He will be with us when we choose to come under His protection, when we choose to walk with Him. I think we can be rest assured that we will be blessed.
Yeah, the character of Ruth is so underrated as well,
Yeah.
I must say.
Yeah. So obedience is better than sacrifice, and disobeying God will cost us even more. And I think sometimes the question is, are we willing for God to come and do the things in our life?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's that for the Book of Ruth. Thank you so much for joining us on the grind, and we will catch you next time. Bye.
Bye.